Hey guys, thanks for watching another video. I really appreciate it. So as you can see here on the screen, we're looking at special right triangles right now. Okay, so you're going to see a little more about that in a second. But if you haven't already, go ahead and join me on Google Classroom. Go to classroom.google.com, use the code that's written on the screen right there. Make sure you join if you haven't already. It helps you be able to be updated. I also had some questions on whether I could cover more problems. I didn't want to make the videos too long, but instead of worrying about that, I'm going to go ahead and cover more problems, not all of them still, just like I would in class, but I'm going to cover more problems, and then along with that I'll have timestamps in the comments for each problem, so if you don't want to look over every single one, you don't have to. So we're looking at special right triangles. Our first type of special right triangle here, you can see, is a 45, 45, 90 special right triangle. So all that means, as you can see here, is literally just that you have 45 degrees, 45 degrees, and a 90-degree angle in the triangle. Those are the three angles. That's all it means. So it seems really specific, a little odd, but with this, we actually have special side lengths. So noting, if you look at the side here, the legs of this kind of a triangle are always congruent because we do have the two congruent base angles, which means that this is an isosceles triangle. I'm going to go ahead and say that these legs are A, just some variable. You can do X, whatever letter you want to do. So if we know the length of the two legs, we know that the hypotenuse is actually just whatever that length is times the square root of 2. Okay, so just whatever that length of the legs are, A in this case is what we're doing, that A, that length, times the square root of 2. So one thing I'm going to go ahead and go over real quick is how to rationalize. That's what you do whenever you have a square root on the bottom of a fraction. So let's just say we have a square root of 3 or something. Let's just go ahead and put a 1 on top. It doesn't matter what you have on top, but we don't like to have square roots on the bottom of fractions. Okay, so again, I'm going to write this down. It's called rationalization. Ooh, and over the words, it's okay. So this is rationalizing, it's rationalization. So whatever you do, you don't want the square root to be on the bottom of the fraction. So we're going to take that. We're going to multiply by square root of 3, whatever the fraction is on the bottom. We're going to multiply the top of the fraction by that number, and we're going to multiply the bottom of the fraction by that number, by that square root. Okay? When you're dealing with square roots, I'm going to write it up here. Okay? So you keep the inside the square root, and you keep the outside the square root. Okay, so you're keeping the ones on inside together and you're keeping the ones outside together. So for example, here we have the 1 times the square root of 3 still. Okay, but since both of these are inside or underneath the square root, we can put them together. So 3 times 3. So we have this one on the outside of the square root, and we have the ones on the inside of the square root together. So now we can go ahead and do this out a little more. So 1 times square root of 3 is just square root of 3. And then on the bottom, 3 times 3, you can do underneath the square root. It just gives you 9. And then if we simplify, we still have this square root of 3. But the square root of 9 is just going to be 3. Okay, I don't know why that keeps disappearing, but the square root of 9 is just going to be 3. And so what it's going to do is it's going to take this 1 over square root of 3, or whatever you have, and it's going to take the square root and it's going to put it on the top of the fraction is all you're doing. So I don't want to see any square roots on the bottom of the fractions. I want it on the top. Use rationalization. Okay, multiply by the square root that you have on the denominator on the top and the bottom of the fraction, and simplify. So now that we have all of this, we can actually go to number 1 and look at it. Okay, so we have either the legs or the hypotenuse. I'm going to go ahead and mark that these are the legs. The ones that are next to the right angle are the legs. Those are the same. And then the one across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. You can see that these two are the same. We just marked it. So this x is also going to be 8. Okay, and then we have that the hypotenuse is going to be whatever length the leg is times the square root of 2. Okay, so it's going to be whatever length the leg is times the square root of 2. The legs here, you can see, are 8. And we just need the square root of 2 on the end. That's it. 8 square root of 2. So looking at number 2, I want you guys to try this one on your own. Okay, this one's also 45 degrees. Okay, you have the legs. Okay, and then across from this is the hypotenuse. Try this one on your own. Just take the length of the legs, multiply by square root of 2 for the hypotenuse, and then remember that both of the legs are the same length. We can look at number 3 now. Okay, so this problem doesn't give us the lengths of the legs. Okay, those are the ones that are missing, but it does give us the hypotenuse length. Okay, and we know that this hypotenuse length, so I'm going to go ahead and do hypotenuse equals the a square root of 2. We know that. And the hypotenuse here we know is 19 is equal to a square root of 2. Well, we want the square root of 2 to be on the other side so we can see what a is, because we're not solving for 19, we're solving for a. So we can divide by that square root of 2 to cancel it out. It gives us that a is equal to 19 over square root of 2. Okay, so that's the length of the legs, but again, we don't want that square root of 2 on the bottom. So I'm going to move over here and we're going to look at 19 divided by the square root of 2. And we're going to rationalize this number. Because we don't want this square root of 2 on the bottom, we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by it. Okay, so we're going to do straight across 19 times the square root of 2. Since 19 is on the outside and square root of 2 is underneath the square root here, can't do anything to it. But now we have square root of 2 times square root of 2. So since they're both underneath the square root, we can take those 2's together. So again, we can't do anything about that 19 square root of 2. But we do know that 2 times 2 is 4. Okay? And then we know that the square root of 4 is just 2. So our answer here, now that we do not have a square root on the bottom, is going to be that answer. So 19 square root of 2 over 2. Okay? And both legs are going to be the same length there. So whenever you're giving a 45, 45, 90 triangle, first figure out which sides are the legs. They're going to be the sides that are directly attached to the 90-degree angle. Next, figure out which one's the hypotenuse. It's going to be the side directly across from the right angle. It's also the longest side. Next, if you're given the legs and you need the hypotenuse, you're going to take that leg length and you're going to multiply by square root of 2. If you have the hypotenuse and you need the leg length, you're going to divide by the square root of 2. So now we're going to look at 30, 60, 90 right triangles. Just like 45, 45, 90, it's going to be a right triangle, okay? Except in this one, it's going to have a 30-degree angle and a 60-degree angle along with its 90-degree angle, okay? So we have the 30-degree angle. Across from it's going to be the shorter leg, okay? We have the 60-degree angle. Across from it, the side that doesn't touch it, so this side, is going to be the longer leg. And then again, across from the right angle is always going to be the hypotenuse, no matter what triangle you're looking at, as long as it's a right triangle. So again, shorter leg, we're just going to say A, some variable, however long it is. The longer leg, okay, is going to be whatever the shorter leg is times the square root of 3. So you have a 30, 60, 90 triangle, you're looking at square roots of 3 instead of square root of 2. And the hypotenuse is just going to be double whatever the shorter leg is. Okay, so we're just going to use these. So our first step on any of these problems is to label the sides. So figure out which one's the long leg, which one's the short leg, and which one is the hypotenuse. From there, we are going to use the lengths to solve for A. Okay, so we're going to use this to solve for A, and then we'll just plug them in. Plug A in to one of these. So if we look at number 4, we can label the sides. So we have the shorter leg is always across from the 30-degree angle. Since the 60 and the 90 are already taken, this one has to be the 30. So this is going to be the short leg. Okay. The longer leg is across from the 60-degree angle. So this is going to be the long. And then across from the right angle again is always the hypotenuse. So now we just have to solve for A. Only one of our sides actually has a number, not a variable. So it's the short side, and we know that the short side is just equal to a if we look up here. So whatever the short side is here, 5, is equal to a. So we've already solved for a. From there, if we look at these, we need x. It's the long side. It's going to be whatever a is times the square root of 3. So we have 5 is a times the square root of 3. If we're looking for y, it's the hypotenuse. Okay, it's just going to be 2 times a. Okay, 2 times a is 5. So you're just going to get 10. So in each of these problems, you're going to label the sides. Longer side, the shorter side, and then the hypotenuse. You're going to solve for a, which might require a little more work if you have one of these two instead of just the shorter leg. And then from there, you'll just plug them in to get the other two sides. So looking at number 5, we can go ahead and label the sides. I'm going to start with the hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. Okay, this is a 30 degree, which is the smallest angle. So the smallest side, or the shorter side, is across from it. And then lastly, this has to be the 60 degree angle. And so across from it is going to be the longer side. So now that we have them labeled, we can solve for a using the side that we have. Again, it gives us the length of the short side. And we know that the short side is equal to a. So that's really simple. A is just going to be this 14. Again, we're looking for x now, which is the hypotenuse. Okay, so it's going to be 2 times whatever a is. A is 14 here. So if we multiply 14 by 2, you're going to get 28. Okay, and then we're looking for the longer side. The longer side is just a, whatever a is, times the square root of 3. So a is 14 here, and this times the square root of 3. And that's all you got to do. Makes it pretty simple. So again, for each problem, we're just going to figure out which sides are which. So hypotenuse, short side, or the longer side. We're going to use these and one of the side lengths to solve for a, and then from there, we're going to plug in that value to the other two in order to figure out what the lengths of the other sides are. Okay, so let's look at number 6. So we're going to start by labeling the sides. The hypotenuse is always directly across from the right angle. So 32 here's the hypotenuse. 30 degree angle up here. Across from it's going to be the shorter side. So this x value is the shorter side. And then this has to be the 60 degree angle. And then across from it, it's going to be the long side. Okay, so it gives us the value of the hypotenuse. So this hypotenuse value, 32, is going to be equal to 2a. And then from there, we just have to solve for a. This one, again, is pretty simple. We're going to divide by 2. Okay, get rid of that. Give us 16 on this side, a on that side. So we know that a is 16. So with that, we can look for the shorter side, or x. Okay, the shorter leg is just going to be what a is. So it's going to be whatever a is, which is just 16 in this case. Then after that, we're going to look for y, which is the longer side. The longer leg is going to be whatever a is times the square root of 3. Okay, so a is 16, and then just times the square root of 3. Just write it right next to it. Okay, so now I'm going to let you guys do 7 on your own. I'm going to go over 8. Okay, so looking at number 8, okay, again, across from the right angle is always going to be the hypotenuse. So this x value is the hypotenuse. This is the 60 degree angle, so across from it's going to be the longer side. And then across from this little 30 degree angle is going to be the shorter side. So it gives us the length of the longer side. So I'll just go and write that 20 down here. And then that 20 long side is going to be equal to a squared root of 3. Okay, then to solve for a, since this is being multiplied, we're going to divide by the square root of 3. So the square root of 3's will cancel out, which will give us that a is equal to 20 divided by the square root of 3. But again, we want to take this and put the square root on top. So we're going to rationalize. So we have that a is equal to 20 divided by the square root of 3. Okay, Square root of 3 is what we have on the bottom. So we're going to multiply by the bottom and the top by square root of 3. 20 square root of 3, it's just what it is. Okay, square root of 3 times square root of 3. We can put this stuff underneath the square root together. So 3 and 3 are both underneath the square root, so 3 times 3 is still there. Can't do anything to 20 or square root of 3 on the top. But on the bottom, 3 times 3 gives us square root of 9 here. Okay, again, can't do anything to the top, but square root of 9 is 3. So we can write that 3 in place of square root of 9. And then if we take 20 divided by 3, it's going to give us 5. And then we still have this square root of 3. So since a equals 5 times the square root of 3, we can go ahead and solve for x. So x is the hypotenuse. You can see that the hypotenuse is equal to 2 times a. So 2 times 5 times the square root of 3. And again, we just multiply the things on the outside together, giving us 10 square root of 3. Looking for y, it's the short side. The shorter leg is just whatever a is. So we just copy down 5 square root of 3, and that's it. So if you end up not realizing that you have a square root on the bottom and you don't rationalize, I'm not going to count off points. But I do want you to realize that other classes later on in high school, as well as all throughout college, will want you to rationalize because we don't like square roots on the bottom, and you'll understand why later. So I'm going to let you do 9 on your own as well, and I'm going to show you at least a few problems on the back. I'm going to look over number 10. I'm going to go and mark the ones I'm going to do. Do number 10. I'm going to go over number 14. I'm going to go over number 17. Okay, and then if we scroll down, I'm going to go over number 23. Okay, so let's look at number 10. We have a 45-90 triangle. Okay, so these are going to be 45 degrees, both of them. And we know that these two sides are going to be the same. So this hypotenuse is 28. Okay, and then this hypotenuse, 28, is equal to a square root of 2. So, in order to solve for a, we will divide both sides by the square root of 2, which is going to give us that a is equal to 28 divided by the square root of 2, which, if we rationalize, multiply square root of 2 times the top and the bottom, you're going to end up getting 28 square root of 2 over 2. Okay? So, both of these sides, the x and the y, are going to end up being the exact same answer. And it's going to be this 28 square root of 2 over 2. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to go over number 14. So looking at it, we have a 30 and a 90 degree. So you can tell this one's going to be a 60 degree. So we're going to be looking at a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Across from the right angle is always the hypotenuse. Across from this 60 degree is the longer side. And then across from this 30 is the shorter side. So the one that it gives us is this 15 square root of 3. That's the long side. And as you can see up here, long is going to be equal to a times the square root of 3. Okay, so if we just divide both sides by the square root of 3 to get a on its own, those will cancel out, and those will end up canceling out as well, giving us that a is just 15. So a is 15. We can go and look for x and y. So x is the short side. Okay, so the short side is just equal to a. Then we can look for y, which is the hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is just going to be 2 times whatever a is. A here is 15. Gives us 30. So again, anytime you're going to look through these problems and try and solve for one. So again, anytime you're going to try and solve one of these problems, you're going to figure out which sides are which. So like the legs and the hypotenuse for a 45, 45, 90 triangle, the short, the long leg, and the hypotenuse for a 30, 60, 90. You're going to use this information along with one of the side lengths that's given to you to solve for A, okay? Using one of these things up here. And then from there, you're just going to go ahead and solve for the other two sides that you're missing. Let's look at number 17 now, okay? So it gives us that we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So we have the legs and the hypotenuse. You can see that this is a leg, that's a leg, and this side across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. So I moved it up, but you can see that the hypotenuse here is square root of 10. And if you look up, we have that the hypotenuse is equal to a times the square root of 2. So to solve for a, we're going to divide by that square root of 2 on both sides. That's a 10. It looks like an infinity. It's 10. Okay, so those will cancel out. And these, since they're both under the square root, we can just put all under a square root. We have 10 divided by 2. Underneath the square root is going to be equal to this a. Okay, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we get 5 underneath the square root. So our a is just going to be square root of 5. Each of the legs, if you look back up there, are just going to be equal to a. So each of these are just going to be square root of 5. Okay, so I've copied it down here so that we can go over number 23 together. So let's go ahead and just go ahead and look at the triangles we have. So we know that this is going to be a 90-degree angle as well, since it makes a straight line. This one's going to be a 35. This one's going to be a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And you can see over here that this one's going to be a 45, 45, 90. So we'll look at this one first, just because it's the one that has the side length. So these two sides are going to be the same, because they're the ones coming off of the right angle. And then this is going to be the hypotenuse. So this hypotenuse, this 15 square root of 2, is going to be equal to a square root of 2. Okay, then to solve for a, we could just divide by the square root of 2. These cancel out and these cancel out, giving that a is just 15. Okay, so both of these sides are going to be 15. So that gives us the z here is 15. Now we can look at the other triangle. We have one of the sides here. Okay, it's across from the 60, so it's going to be the long one. This is across from the right angle, so it's going to be the hypotenuse. And this one's across from the 30 is going to be the short one. So we know that the longer side is going to be that 15. So that 15 is equal to whatever the longer side is equal to, which is a square root of 3 in this case. So to solve for a, we're going to divide by that square root of 3 on both sides. Cancel out on this side, but not on that side. So that's going to give us that a is equal to 15 divided by the square root of 3. If you go through rationalizing, okay, multiply the top by square root of 3, multiply the bottoms by square root of 3, you're going to end up getting 15 times square root of 3 divided by 3. 15 divided by 3, since they're both not underneath the radical, or the square root, it's just another word for square root, it's going to give us 5 square root of 3. So this a value on this side is going to be 5 square root of 3. We know that x is the hypotenuse. It's going to be 2 times whatever that a is. So 2 times 5 square root of 3 is 10 square root of 3. Okay. And then whatever the short side is just going to be whatever a is. So that's where we get the 5 square root of 3. So again, figure out which triangle you have, whether it's a 45, 45, 90 or a 30, 60, 90. Label your sides, whether you have legs and a hypotenuse, or the short leg and the longer leg and the hypotenuse. Use one of the side lengths that it gives you to solve for a. You see which one that number has to be equal to based on which kind of side it is. And then from there you solve from a and figure out the other sides using these as well. Okay, so I hope this helped a lot. Really appreciate you watching. Again, if you have not joined Google Classroom, go back to the beginning of this video and make sure you join. This is going to be due Friday along with all the other work from this week, just like it was last week. You can either send it to me on Facebook, so take a picture of your work. You can send it through email, send it through a text, which has my phone number there. Upload it to Google Classroom on the correct assignment, or you can send it through a live grades message Let me know if any of these are not going to work. Like if none of them are going to work, let me know please as soon as possible so we can figure something out. So you'll have practice problems on these kind of things tomorrow as well. I'm also, in order to help with those practice problems as well as the problems on this worksheet, going to be going live on Facebook to answer some questions on this kind of things. So if you have any questions, go ahead and message them to me now. Just like make sure I know that it's a question for live stream tomorrow. In the description is going to be a link to a poll. I'll also post it on Facebook and everything else to figure out when a good time is for me to go live, depending on what time you guys are available. So definitely go on that and answer what time you'd prefer. And if you have any questions, again, shoot me a message and we'll figure something out. So you guys just have an amazing Monday and have a wonderful week at home. Stay safe and message me if you need anything. Thanks, you guys.